Disclosure has already happened. It has happened on the highest level. In my belief, in my analysis, aerospace corporations, governments, the intelligence community and the military all have scientific epistemological proof that there are non-human intelligences within our biosphere engaging our world on a daily basis. And so when people say we're waiting for disclosure, they may have not thought it through enough. They're waiting for disclosure outside of the entities I just spoke about. The elephant in the room is, why does the phenomenon feel comfortable giving reams of smoking gun evidence to these private entities fully committed to secrecy and not giving it to 8 billion people at large? Now, some people think that we don't need disclosure because we can engage the phenomenon and learn about it on our own accord. And while there is some merit to that argument, let me pose a question. Why? Why does Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, the CIA, and programs within the Air Force and et cetera, put billions of dollars into investigating this phenomenon? The reason is simple. Because they know it exists. Because they have the scientific epistemological proof that it exists. Now, what would happen if the scientific epistemological proof existed in the public domain? Immediately, that would trigger untold amounts of money flowing into research of the phenomenon. So the reason militaries and governments and the intelligence community pour so much money into it is not because they're more inquisitive than the rest of us. It's not because they're more interested in the phenomenon than the rest of us. It's because they have something we lack, which is smoking gun evidence. And as long as we go without that smoking gun evidence, more or less, the UFO subject is going to remain within the fringe, as opposed to where it actually belongs and where logic dictates it should be, which is in the public domain. So that all of civilization can confront reality, as opposed to, oh, UFO books. Oh, UFO documentaries. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, my YouTube channel. Don't you love my YouTube channel? I'm such a great person. I'm so smart. Look at me talk about UFOs. Or even members of Congress talking about the importance of this. I don't want members of Congress talking about the importance of the UFO issue anymore. I don't want documentaries with talking heads. Even James Clapper, who was what was DNI and has an incredible resume and is about as credible as you can get. Look, I respect all this. All this is important. But the elephant in the room is that we need smoking gun evidence so that disclosure does not exclusively exist within aerospace, governments, military, and the intelligence community, but it also exists in the public, everyday human world. And the moment that happens, more money will pour into research trying to uncover what's going on than has been poured into militaries and governments. This disparity is just not acceptable, and we need to talk about it. We need to underscore it. We need to put it under a spotlight because it is the elephant in the room. And I think one of the reasons we have lost sight of this is because we're programmed by the control mechanism that the phenomenon has instituted for decades now. And I mean, it's why we say things like, I don't need the government to tell me. I already know it's real. Yeah, but do you want this artificial construct to persist? Do you not want the shift to happen in your lifetime? You're only saying these things because you are programmed by the way the phenomenon entrenches itself in this world by creating such a disparity between who gets the smoking gun evidence and who doesn't. We're all affected by the control mechanism. Even skeptics, in my opinion, have been fooled by the control mechanism. They think, well, there's no smoking gun in the public domain, therefore it must not exist. They are wrong in my opinion. And frankly, lots of believers who say we don't need disclosure because we already know it exists, they are wrong too. We have lost our logical thinking. We have become weirdly subjective about this topic and accepting tropes, logical tropes, as somehow higher thinking, when ultimately, when you actually analyze these tropes, they are utter madness. They are utter madness. And this has got to end. I will inform you that I've written a very long article, about 3,500 words, that goes into this in depth about what's going on, why it's a problem, and why we need to put a spotlight on it. And I hope that it cuts through some of the bias that I think is so entrenched in the UFO community by people who mean well, by the way. And I absolutely am not above it at all. I've given credence to one of the tropes before in some capacity that I no longer do. I think at the end of the day, nobody is so smart, nobody has such a sophisticated level of self-awareness that they have not been affected by the control mechanism that the phenomenon has instituted in our world. And that control mechanism is quite simple, right? The control mechanism is simply that the phenomenon reveals itself enough to where we get stories, we get reports, we witness how weird the US government handles this issue. Why are they being so weird if there's nothing to hide? There might even be some images that are actually legitimate, but there's no way to prove it, so it still doesn't qualify as smoking gun evidence. We have highly corroborated mass sightings, and we have commonality of stories amongst disparate people. I mean, yes, in my opinion, the evidence is overwhelming that there's a high probability that there is a non-human intelligence here. And yet, some people see it as coincidence or happenstance. I don't. I think it's part of the control mechanism instituted by the phenomenon that after all these decades, the smoking gun evidence invariably, is that the right word, invariably? I don't even know. I'm so upset, I don't even know. The smoking gun evidence is falling into the hands, of our institutions that are fully committed to secrecy, like corporations, the government, militaries, the intelligence community. Oh, that's convenient. Oh, that's really convenient. It's just, the smoking gun evidence just always falls into those absolutely committed to secrecy, but never happens, or even over multiple decades, alleged intentional landings and crashes throughout the decades all over the world. The smoking gun evidence still falls into those committed to secrecy, is acquired by those committed to secrecy. No mistakes are ever made, no mishaps that would lead to the smoking gun evidence getting into the public domain. And you're expecting me to believe that that is just a statistical anomaly. I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think it is. And that's what my paper is going to be about. And yeah, I think we need to talk about it. I think we need to focus on this. It doesn't mean you have to agree with my perspective, but you have to confront this hypothesis or this perspective. We can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. It's important. I'll see you in the next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, patrons, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.